All right, I'm going to call us to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Thank you. For attendance, we have 4 board members this evening present. Jack's unable to join us tonight. And thank you, students, for being here. We're dismissing Madeline. Thank you. All right, we are going to adopt the meeting agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for this evening?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. That was Meredith and then Diana. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. We have a presentation this evening. Dr. Hanrahan is here to talk with us about Island View Elementary.
It's just a little delayed.
Thank you. Good evening. I have 2 Island View staff members with me, Monica Frost, our MTSS coordinator, and Aurora Everhart, one of our 2nd grade teachers, and they really will be at the heart of this presentation. So one thing that I'm very proud of this year is the focus that we've had on something called collective efficacy, which ranks as the top influence on student achievement. And it's really this idea that it's about a shared belief that working together, we can help students grow. And it's bigger than collaboration. It's really this idea that when I'm working with you, my kids are your kids and your kids are my kids. And it's a philosophical mind shift. And what am I doing wrong here? Trying to. So the staff this year has tried hard to infuse this notion of collective efficacy in all of our big work, in our SIP and in our PLC and student growth cycles. And that's what we're going to really focus on this evening. One thing that we did to reflect collective efficacy in our PLCs and our student growth work was to expand the PLCs by targeting students who receive special ed services on an IEP or who are served in our MTSS program. And what that did was it brought in additional team members to our PLC and student growth work, which was super exciting. And Aurora, Ms. Everhart, our 2nd grade teacher, will dig into that a little bit more.
Hi, I'm Aurora Everhart. I can talk in front of kids all day long, but adults I get nervous, so I'm gonna do my best. So I don't know if we can click on the link. I don't know if you've seen the data or not, but this particular cycle that we're looking at is a PLC student growth goal unit that we did back in, I believe it was January, February. And it was on a early literacy skill, basically the sound, which as a 2nd grade team, we are boots on the ground with phonics, and we are unlocking that science of reading and really digging into that. So the sound sounds really easy, but guess what? It's complicated for 7 and 8-year-olds. So the first piece we do is a pre-assessment to see where my class is. And based on that, it became pretty apparent that there was a group that definitely just whole class instruction would probably get what they needed. There was a group that was already ready for enrichment. And then there was the targeted group I wanted to focus on, which is the intervention group. Of that, I identified 6 students that I considered my focus group. And I knew if I gave them something other than, then they could just take off and start to fly. This is where that collective efficacy piece really comes into play. I don't know if you can scroll down on that. If you keep going down in here, where these are the plans for the students who didn't get it, who are on track, and who know it. And all of these items are not things that I have created on my own. These are things from a toolkit of collaborations that I have had over my career, both at Island View, with Fidalgo Elementary, with Mount Airy Elementary. It starts with my grade level colleagues, talking about what the kids can do, what we need to have them do next, pulling in tech items like soundboards, doing a lot of call and response, do a lot of songs in our class. Then talking to previous year's teachers, what do they know about these students? What can help me understand the students' needs and build those relationships? Because as we all know, students learn when they know you value them and care about them. The really exciting work we've been doing with our PD days this year that Brian's been leading, one was K-5. We met to look at the scope and sequence of writing and having that ability to talk about where my learning in second grade fits in the higher level of the entire child's educational career was super powerful. And just saying how, yeah, it's second grade sound, but if they don't get that, what's going to happen down the road? We also had a PD response with our work with our OTs, who just have tons of knowledge about sensory recepting with children, and getting to talk about some of the tactile modalities we might use, things like Play-Doh, things like pulling sounds with beads, things like using poppets, and channeling their learning into appropriate playfulness. And then also collaborating with the speech teachers and the special ed teachers, and all of that comes in. And then finally, we reevaluate and we say, okay, what worked and what didn't? And after all that, you can see I had, of the 6 original focus group, 5 ended up making significant growth. 1 was needing some more supports, and that's when we start talking to our MTSS coordinators and pull in some more pieces. 2 things I forgot to mention. 1, the MTSS paras in our room are vital too. I linked in here also a flex time schedule. We get 30 minutes a day with our paras, and I try to be really specific and intentional, make every second count with that. Basically, I break it down into 2 15-minute increments, so 4 groups, 2 with her, 2 with me, and just every second your boots on the ground with the kids. The kids that have the most need get met with the most. And then the other big piece that I failed to mention is community. We have a lot of volunteers that come in, build relationships with the kids. There's a gentleman who's been coming to Island View, I think, for 20 years to read with our students and just build that rich love of literature. And it's pretty incredible what we have here. So, as I said, when all of that needs something more than, that's when I turn over to my colleague, Monica Frost, our MTSS coordinator.
Hi, good evening. Building on what you've just heard tonight about student growth goals and our PLC work, I wanted to just zoom out a little bit and kind of share with you how the system works at Island View when we're providing data-driven intervention for students. And so we're not quite yet, sorry. So we really focus on 5 key kind of types of data, and those types of data are kind of revolving around using the right assessment for the right purpose at the right time. And those purposes are screeners, where we're identifying students that are at risk, or progress monitoring to make sure students are making growth. We're diagnosing and pinpointing exactly why a student's struggling. We're determining the best area for placement in intervention, and then of course coming around and summatively evaluating if students met their growth goals or not. And this is all part of a continuous cycle that we're doing, where we're just looking at needs, planning, making intervention, and changing just to make sure kids are growing. Nikki? Thanks. This next slide here kind of shows on those 5 types of key purposes of data. Just that screener, that main screener we use. You know, we use maps 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring, and that's kind of our early screener in the fall. But the 2 other in that column there, the foundations inventory and the fluency data, those are really diagnostic tools that we use where we can really pinpoint, especially in the area of reading, like why a student is struggling. And that inventory can tell me, is it letter and sounds? Is it consonant blends? Is it our controlled vowels, like Mrs. Everhart was just talking about? So that's our diagnostic where we can really pinpoint in there. And this is just a snippet of the data we collect for the whole school that of Mrs. Everhart's grade. This next slide here doesn't look like much, but like Aurora touched on, this whole idea of shared data has become really important and valuable to us this year in our work. Brian's mentioned, we've been doing a lot of work on collective efficacy and really increasing our knowledge of one another's work, and this shared data is a big part of it. If you look at the snippet to the left, I can go in at any time and I can see every end of unit assessment that Mrs. Everhart or any teacher has given, and I can pinpoint exactly, you see the red areas there, I can pinpoint exactly what a student is lacking on a particular assessment. And that's all great because it's in real time and students can receive intervention on those skills immediately rather than waiting for a meeting that has to take place, several weeks later. So that shared data is really important. And then on the other end of it, the progress monitoring, making sure the data that I'm collecting with the students that I'm working with in intervention groups also gets back to the teachers and they can see how students are progress monitoring there. Every 6 weeks, I do a data meeting with every grade level, and we look at the classroom-based assessments, we look at our progress monitoring data, and every 6 weeks we make adjustments, and intervention's fluid, and we move kids in and out of systems to make sure they're in the right place. So it's great meetings, and shared data is really important. I wanted to throw this last slide in here because I think it's just really fun. This was just one 2nd grade student this year where I just kind of typed in how their data and how they're doing so far this year, kind of based on the 5 key points of data that we're looking at: the screening, diagnosing, placing, monitoring, and summative. And the student came in at the beginning of the year and they were below benchmark on our diagnostics. They were below benchmark on our screener. We found that they were having trouble with long vowel teams, blends, and some low accuracy in reading, really specific, like limited expression. We placed them in a really intensive intervention group. We're progress monitoring. They kept growing. At winter, you can see all the way at winter already, the student was at approaching grade level or at or above benchmark at that time. And so then we were able to kind of move them into a different intervention. But it's really fun to see how I wish we could have this report for every student we have in the building because it's really fun to see that progress. And just to end, in the end, I just hope everyone can realize that the growth that these students have isn't random and it's not by chance. It's really part of a collective group working together, looking at data. It's driving our work, and we do it every day. And looking ahead, we really hope to expand our use of shared data into other subject areas and also have data and tracking around social emotional learning as well. So those are our goals moving forward. Okay, thank you.
That's how we're flying at Island View. Thank you so much. Questions or comments?
No, well, just first off, thank you both and Dr. Hanrahan for coming. This is just like super exciting to see. Diana asked me what RIT means, and I said RTI, response intervention. I'm like, no, it's RIT. Anyway, I was like, look at the percentile. That makes more sense to us than the RIT score. But I was going to ask Aurora how frequently, like that what you identified was like one cycle, a PLC cycle. Like how many of those do you do throughout the year? And I'm assuming you don't write it up that nicely that was for us, but yeah. Okay. So kind of like the number of units is. Yeah. Well, I love it. I know you're doing it all the time, but seeing it written up that way with the student data that shows the progression they made is like really powerful. So thank you for doing that for us. I appreciate it. Other questions?
Well, I don't have any questions. I just want to say that, so in the 4 years I've been sitting here, this is so exciting to watch. We have a spreadsheet, and we track kids, and we get together sometimes to this like really intentional deep work that you guys are doing. I can only imagine that we're seeing, I know that we're seeing the reflection of this in some of the data we've been looking at Island View, but just knowing how well thought and watching so that kids don't get left behind, and knowing the kids, and then the collaboration amongst your staff, right? It's really exciting to see that growth over 4 years about how mature and thoughtful this is, and I'm really excited to see what's next. And Monica, I would tell you that I would bet we're not very far from you being able to have one of these on all of the students, right?
Reiterate what we spoke about earlier is I really appreciate the variety of tools and the consistency that you guys use your tools, and you're looking for new tools all the time so that you can advance the kids as needed, because they all have different needs. And I see that you guys really have a broad spectrum of tools, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and for your great presentations. We're going to move to public comment. We have 2 people signed up this evening. Just a reminder, the board, we allow 3 minutes per public comment. Nikki has a timer right there, so you can watch your time as you're speaking, and as you get toward the 3 minutes, please wrap up. And if not, it'll ring, and we'll ask you to stop when 3 minutes is up. And the board typically doesn't respond to public comment during the meeting, but either us or Dr. Bruno will follow up as necessary afterwards. So our first public speaker is Linnea McCord.
Good evening. My name is Linnea McCord, and I'm an Anacortes resident. Tonight I'm here because our school board has a serious problem with transparency and accountability, one that goes to the heart of your responsibility to the community. Washington law is clear. The school board, not the administration, is ultimately responsible to the voters on how the school district is run. You can delegate the day-to-day work, but you can't delegate the duty to protect the public trust. Last June, the state auditor issued a management letter flagging the unallowable use of technology levy funds, specifically ones that were not permitted under the rules of the levy. It's been almost a year later, and the district hasn't issued a formal statement about it, public response, or corrective action. Both the Skagit County auditor and the treasurer have confirmed to the local citizens that this is the board's responsibility. This wasn't a simple oversight. Internal emails show that concerns about misusing these funds had been raised in the district for a long time. It was between the former superintendent and the former director of finance. Yet none of this was disclosed before the election in February. The voters were not aware of the state auditor's letter. It was not in the materials or pamphlet. In fact, stipends and salaries were not going to be used for the technology funds. The levy passed by the slimmest margin in recent memory, 52%. In our communities, many seniors and fixed income families are already struggling with rising property taxes, which are going up extremely fast, just to stay in their homes. When critical information like this is withheld, that's not a paperwork issue. That's a breach of public trust, which is a very popular subject these days. Silence now is an abdication of your statutory duty. I respectfully ask that the board take 4 immediate steps. Place the 2025 state auditor's letter on your next agenda and have a full public discussion. Issue a formal response, public response, and clear corrective action plan. Make sure that full and honest disclosure is made in all future levy communications, and explain why the internal concerns raised by the Irish Sullivan emails were never brought to the board for oversight, which is what your job is. We've provided you with all that information in our written submission, the auditor's letter, and the relevant emails. Restoring trust is simple. Be transparent, own the mistake, and fix it. Our children and our taxpayers deserve nothing less. Thank you for your time. I look forward to your prompt action.
Thank you. The second public speaker is Suzanne Rohner.
Thank you for this opportunity. As the previous speaker mentioned, we had levies this year, and for the first time in at least 16 years, there was a statement against the levy. And I think this school board was very concerned that the levy would fail. I went to several public meetings about it and learned that 84% of operating budget is for labor. And I had no idea how that related to a normal business, and so I asked my friend Artificial Intelligence what that meant. And what I found out is that most healthy businesses operate with a 50 to 70% operating budget going to wages and benefits. Anything above that range is considered structurally risky. However, some industries, such as hospitals, hospitality, nonprofits, and schools, are inherently labor-heavy, but even in these sectors, 84% is above normal. Labor at 84% of a school district's income signals a structurally constrained, labor-dominated budget with almost no operational flexibility. Compensation is outpacing revenue, staffing levels don't match enrollment, non-labor areas are being cut to the bone, the district has almost no ability to absorb shocks, and long-term obligations are being deferred. And I think that's what I saw in the statements for the levies. It's basically a cookie-cutter statement from the previous levy. The same things, HVAC and roofs, everything, nothing is different. It's the same thing every time, and it appears it doesn't get taken care of. So I went to figure out how much labor and wages is costing the school district. If you go to Gov Salaries, GOVSALARIES.com, you can navigate to any public group. You can have their school boards, police, firefighters, consuls. So pick your group, pick your state, and your eyes will open up. So I went and got the Anacortes School District. The top wage, and these are for 2025, top wage was about $225,000. The first 11 people on that list are administrative principals. The salary range was $175,000 to $225,000 per year, plus benefits. 3 of those people are gone. My guess is their replacements are very close to those ranges, if not higher. And then I looked at the first teacher on the list. This is public information, and we can look it up. This person is, as in comparison, the top 3, and this is a secondary teacher, high school, the top 3 states.
Thank you. That's 3 minutes. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
The highest teacher is making $170,000 a
Thank you,
year.
Ms. Rohner.
Thank you.
We are going to move into superintendent comments. Dr. Bruner.
Yes, good evening, directors. My report this evening will be pretty brief. I hope that's not terribly disappointing. But I do want to make you aware, first and foremost, of a meeting for interested homeschool parents and families that we have scheduled. We actually have 2 meetings scheduled for individuals who have indicated to us that they are interested in learning about how we might be able to partner with them to support their homeschool efforts. We will have a face-to-face meeting that's scheduled for next week, April 30th at 6 p.m. here at the high school library. And that will be followed by an online meeting, which is scheduled for Tuesday, May 5th at 6 p.m. for individuals who are not able to make it in person on April 30th. And so an invitation has gone out to those individuals who signed up and let us know that they would be interested in receiving that information. It is springtime in schools, and that is marked by testing, and in some cases, a little bit more testing. So the ESPA state assessment is now underway. Also, this week we've had our testing for highly capable programs. And then after the state ESPA test, students will receive their MAP assessments for spring as well. And that does not count AP tests for students who are in advanced placement courses. Spring activities are also well underway. I had the privilege of meeting with parent group leaders from the Mount Erie and Island View PTAs yesterday, and they had an opportunity to talk about what they were up to, and based on that information and everything else I see on all of our school websites, it's clear that people are doing a lot to make spring a happy time for students and also a time to share with the parent community and larger community some information about what kids have been up to this year. We are knee-deep in planning for next school year, as you can imagine, and that certainly includes developing our operating budget, and you heard some information about that from Dr. Frazier during your work study session. We also concluded our budget survey, which was responded to by 371 community members that included staff and parents, and also individuals who had no children in our schools. And we will use that to help inform our budget process moving forward. So that concludes my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Board comments are next.
Heather and I were joined by Dr. Bruner and Dr. Everett at the WASDA DLA 1, the District 1 meeting on Monday night, and we had an opportunity to have some really great conversations around legislative advocacy as well as community partner relationships and work toward making sure the school board is accessible to community members and to our elected officials and others. And it's always nice to get together with groups of people in similar situations as you are and brainstorm a little bit about how we can do more and more or be better and better for students. And so it was a nice little pump me up around the work that we're doing. And we're grateful that Dr. Bruner and Dr. Everett joined us. So thank you.
I was just going to say that the board had an opportunity during our study session this evening to review and give input on Dr. Everett's entry plan. So looking forward to Dr. Everett. He's already kicked off his entry plan, really, but really looking forward to supporting Dr. Everett as he transitions into the school district, and there will be lots of opportunities based on his plan to meet with him, for him to get to know community members, to get to know staff, to get to know students. And he's really taking a listen to learn approach. And so looking forward to sharing more as we get closer to his start on July 1st with everyone around, ways that they're going to be able to engage with him and get to know him and talk to him, to give him input on what's working well in the district and where we can improve. And so if you're interested, people can see that entry plan in the study session agenda. It's just a draft, but it probably won't change too much. And looking forward to the future with that. So any other comments this evening? All right. We will then move into student board presentations, building reports, and then student comments. So we have two this evening, building reports, because one of our students wasn't able to do theirs last month. So we will start with Whitney Early Learning Center, which Zephyrin is going to be presenting about.
Thank you. So I had the pleasure of, I'm going to just take this off the stand. I had the pleasure of talking to Mrs. Billow at Whitney. And part of this was also myself learning a little bit more about Whitney, because I hadn't been there since kindergarten, and it's definitely very different now. But it's an early development facility, so it's like pre-K. And they have kids that are as young as, by the way, okay. They have kids that are as young as 2, all the way up to 5, where then they go to kindergarten at one of our 3 elementary schools. I learned that a good amount of Whitney is rented out to the Boys and Girls Club and Anchors Away, which is a preschool. However, there are still district employees at Whitney, so it's not just those 2 external organizations. Even further, Whitney is a very accommodation IEP 504-driven facility to ensure that all students are taught equitably, and there's no division between the kids based off of special education resources. And the employees and teachers that I talked to at Whitney did say that they would really enjoy seeing a larger school board and superintendent presence at Whitney. And we were talking about site visits, and the board didn't have a site visit scheduled for Whitney during this school year, but they did say that they would like to see one hopefully next year if it's in the schedule. Whitney unfortunately has some challenges with keeping the campus upkept, along with other staffing issues, including the monthly developmental screening. So every month they'll have a meeting with parents and a student to make sure that the kid is developing at a healthy pace, make sure that they're learning all of the stuff that they need to be learning at the pace that they are. And there are 80 kids roughly 80 kids enrolled at Whitney, and 33 are enrolled in special education services. So it's a big emphasis at Whitney is keeping all students, no matter what accommodations they need, equitably taught, and make sure that they're all getting the resources that they need to be prepared for kindergarten and public school.
Thank you, Zephyrin. It's a great idea that we visit Whitney next year. So appreciate you going there and giving us a building report and mentioning that as an idea. Allison has a report on NCTA.
I'm going to take it out. Things going on right now. Hello? Okay. So I spoke with Miss Bauer at NCTA, and I don't know much about NCTA either, so I kind of based my questions for her based on her SIP plans and stuff like that. So my first question that I had for her is, what are the primary goals outlined in your school SIP plan this year? So this year, she said that the school improvement plan is anchored by 3 primary goals, that being access and equity, student outcomes, and readiness and program quality and alignment. They want to make sure that everyone is getting equitable access to all the career and technical programs across all partner districts, not just ours, with a targeted focus on underrepresented student groups. They are aiming to increase student attainment of industry recognized credentials, dual credits, and facilitate successful transitions to post-secondary education, training, or employment. And ensuring all programs meet strict preparatory standards through rigorous instructional frameworks. So, yeah. And then my second question was, what specific evidence supports the progress you've made towards these goals? So she said that there are measurable indicators of progress across multiple operational and academic areas, including enrollment, student success, student voice, and engagement. So they've seen that they are monitoring ongoing concerns regarding certain districts restricting student access to NCTA programs, but they continue to see growth in applications across partner districts supported by increased outreach. And then they have achieved notable growth in dual credit attainment and the earning of industry recognized credentials across all programs. And they have received consistent feedback that highlight high student engagement driven by hands-on career-connected learning. And they've also seen increased participation, which is lots of fun, increased participation in leadership roles. And then my third question for them was how do they ensure that students are college or career ready, specifically on the career side because it is a career and technical college. So they've seen a lot of industry validation and applied experience across all, multiple students. They've also seen a lot of skill building, like professional skills, and focused heavily on communication, teamwork, and problem solving. And they've created pathway planning for most students. So they created clear post-secondary pathways to help students transition seamlessly to college and apprenticeships and a direct employment, et cetera. My fourth question was, how does your school address potential inequities and narrow achievement gaps for some students? So, of course, they said that equity remains essential to NCTA's operational instructional design, and they actively address potential inequities through targeted outreach, inclusive programs, an open doors program, data-driven monitoring, and robust support systems. And then I asked her if there was anything that she wanted to highlight. She said that there's an expansion of work-based learning. They're seeing more students engaging in internships and real-world experiences that directly connect to careers. Their advisory committees and business partners play a critical role in keeping their programs relevant and future-focused. And students are not only earning credits, they're gaining confidence and purpose direction for life after high school. And they also noticed that NCTA serves students from multiple districts, creating opportunities that no single district could offer alone. And then a couple of events, which are fun. Community screening of the movie Multiple Choice on April 30th, Kitchen Wars on May 7th, and their Skill Forward event, May 28th.
Cool. Thank you, Allison. Such a great report. We all get to learn a lot about NCTA from you, so thank you. And we also have our next month's site visit is to NCTA, which is a highlight every year. So appreciate you and your report. Students, do you have other student comments this evening?
I'm just going to take this off, too. I feel left out if I don't. What was I going to say? Oh, there's a lot of different fun school events going on, so I'm going to see how many I can name off with dates and how they went off the top of my head. We had jazz solo night on last Sunday. I forget what day that was. Oh, he's on it. The 19th, we had a really fun time. All of the high school jazz choir singers decided to sing a little solo, or we didn't decide, we had to, but it was super fun. What else is going on? There was Rock the Island, which seemed pretty successful at Buxton's on the 17th. What else is going on? badminton tournament at the high school. That was really fun. Me, Miss Masters, and Tashi all kicked some butt. We got out after the first round, but that's okay. What else? Sorry, I'm thinking of future stuff now. AP tests. It's a slump out here, but we're gonna get through it, and it's gonna be great. Spring break was good. I feel like the Drama 3 show. Come see the Drama 3 show. All three of us are gonna be in it. It opens the 28th. The 28th and runs until Saturday. All three performances are at 7 o'clock in Broadniak. So if you want to see us on stage, come to the Drama 3 show. And that's all I really have. It's a fun time out here during AP tests.
Thank you. End of year and end of year. Lots of things happening. So thank you, Casey. Any other student comments?
I've also got a plethora of things to talk about. I want to on how the FBLA right now, Future Business Leaders of America, is at state competitions right now in Spokane. They left on Tuesday, and they're not going to get back until late tomorrow. AP tests are coming up, as Casey said, and we have AP testing for 2 weeks at AHS, and AHS has a lot of students taking AP tests and in AP classes, and it's really good. It's stressful right now, but it's good for us, and it's good for the health of the curriculum at our school. Choir and band are going to Silverwood Theme Park next month to compete in a just large competition where we're gonna sing a set and then go play in some water. It's gonna be great. ASF applications for scholarship recently closed, and I think that's a really big thing for seniors or graduating seniors from both CAP and AHS. Casey has something really pressing to say.
There was a lot of applications for ASF this year, as I heard. Maybe thanks to my announcements in the morning. You never know, but.
And I think that also just really highlights the connection between the school district and ASF and how close we are and how much they really are benefiting students. They have enough scholarships to give each graduating senior. So pretty much everyone who applied for scholarship is gonna get one from ASF, and that's huge. I also would like to highlight a project that the board reps and I are working on that is we're working on figuring out what we can do to increase a sense of community and belonging. Right now we're focusing on AHS in the middle school, CAP AHS in the middle school, but we hope in future years to also include elementary schools as well. And I'm not going to give it away. We hope to present it to you all next month. I also want to give a shout out to Ali because she's been kind of spearheading the project, and you can also tell by her really in-depth building report that she's taking the board rep seriously, and I think that's really cool. Maddie is also taking it seriously. She's not here because she's at FBLA State. Addie says wish her luck. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're working together to update everybody on our awesome things that we got going on. So in June, which is a little far from now, but that's okay, we got our final choir concert. Yelp. It's on the 2nd of June. Make sure you go because it might make you cry. So yeah, there's that. Graduation's coming up. Cap Sandy graduates on the 5th, and AHS graduate on the 10th. So that means we don't get these guys anymore. Oh, and the band concert is on May 20th. I didn't have that on my calendar. So yeah, come see us. Come to graduation. It's going to be lots of fun. The choir will be performing at those too. So
Thank you. The board will be at graduation. Yep. Thank you. Thank you for all your updates. There's lots of them in the spring always, so appreciate you all. All right, we are going to move into our finance update. So Dr. Fraser has an enrollment report for us and a financial report.
Follow that, Ryan?
No, that I do not have all of that wonderful information about all of the exciting things happening, but I do have riveting information that I'm sure you will want. So I do want to pause on this sheet for a moment because the difference between headcount and FTE will come into play today, and specifically that enrollment reports are inconsistent across reporting platforms. So it's important to know that they do get complicated, and feel free to reach out if you want any more clarity on what we're seeing here. So here's the summary of changes. The summary is FTE, so it's full-time equivalent. So for example, first grade, there was one full-time equivalent lost. In second grade, there was 1/10 of a full-time equivalent picked up. The overall change is negative 2.67 FTE. If you look at the high school, and specifically 11th and 12th grade, you see there's an increase in 12th grade that's pretty significant, and only a slight decline in 11th grade. Part of what happened is Principal Huggins at Capsana, sorry, I'll get that right eventually, noticed that, she and her team noticed that the students that go to the Skills Center weren't being classified as the FTE that they could be. Students that attend the Skills Center can be classified for more than one full-time equivalent. So in reclassifying those students, and they will go back and adjust the enrollment reports through September, all of those enrollment reports will go up in our ALE and Skills Center. So that's a great thing for the district. It's extra enrollment, which leads to extra funding. However, it's worth knowing then that with that reclassification that brought enrollment up based on FTE, we're still down 3. And if not for that reclassification, we would be down about 10. So when we saw earlier in the year a pretty steep decline of 23 across 1 month that was around the time of the semester change, that was significant. And if not for the reclassification, we would have gone down another significant amount, not the same drop. So when we're thinking about forecasting, that comes into play of thinking what is enrollment going to be like next year. And there's considerations on both sides. We do also get to consider that our Skills Center kids will continue to count for more now that we know we can do that. So that number will go up. But the head count went down 9, and that reflects that FTE drop as students continued to move out of our system, which again we did expect from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. It's not unexpected, and we're not in a range that's not typical yet. But I wanted the board to understand that nuance when you look and say, okay, there's a negative 2.67 FTE change for the month. There's more nuance than just that one number this time. So I wanted to call that out for you.
Brian, can I ask, how would it increase by 0.1? Like,
It's a great question. And it has to do with the amount of time that students spend in school. So the most clear examples are at the secondary level where a student may opt to come in later and not have a first period class, and they have a late start or they have an early dismissal. At the elementary level, it's usually more round numbers, and you see that in 4th, 5th, 1st grade. The other small increases can be related to a student that has 504 or a special learning plan that may spend more or less time in school based on their individualized needs.
so it might be like a student that mostly is homeschooled but comes for a service of like some special education service or something like that.
Yes, it can be.
Okay.
It could also be a special education student that is building some stamina and had been able to be at school for a certain amount of time, and now they're being able to be at school a little bit longer, so that FTE increases. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's what usually you see a +1 or a -1, especially at the elementary levels. So.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
What is the increase for the Skills Center FTE? Is it a percentage? Can you explain that a little?
Well, there's off the top of my head, I don't know the exact number. I think it's but there's because the students spend more time when you add up the Skills Center and the school, and there's more services, including counseling services and other things that the school provides. The legislature allows us to count those students for, I believe it's 1.4 FTE total. Don't quote me on that number, but it is greater than 1. And our previous practice had been to count them as 1 FTE and then give the Skills Center their time in FTE and take what was left. And now we can increase the total FTE, still give the Skills Center their portion, and have more to record in our own system. So here are the charts that we typically look at to see that play out. Again, you'll see just a small decrease for this month. And this is looking at the average to actual, knowing that those average numbers were all over the place. This is an average line from 2019. And here's comparing last year in blue, this year in orange, and the budgeted amount. You see we're still significantly above the budgeted amount. And it would take a very significant change from now to the end of June to get the annual average below that budgeted amount. Okay, any further questions? Thank you, Nikki. All right, so the finance report. Here is the fund balance report. You will notice that there is a negative amount in the capital projects fund. That was an arithmetic error on my part. I will fully own that. The county treasurer sends us a sheet that shows us the tax collections, and I looked for our number, and for the capital projects fund, I pulled the number for the debt service fund. So on my sheet, where I calculated how much we could invest or transfer, it looked like we had more money than we did because I simply pulled the number from the wrong funds. I apologize for that error. It is fortunately not consequential. It's been fixed already because of our tax collections that continue to come in. Some county treasurers do not allow us to do this. The Skagit County Treasurer says as long as your total funds are more than zero, they're not concerned about which fund they're in. So they allow us to carry a negative balance in the capital projects fund. Not the first time we've done it. I hope to say it will be the last, but it was a simple arithmetic error. Other than that, it's as expected. The general fund is down just over $100,000 at this point in the year, which again is on trend, and we'll see that later on in the presentation. The debt service fund is down significantly because we paid our bonds in December, and we will do so again in June after these next levy collections come in. As we track our revenue, you see we've had almost 29 million of the 50 we expect coming in, and our largest portion of revenue is from the state, and a large portion of that is held till the end, as you know, we've discussed, so we are looking on track with our revenue collection. And again, the expenditure is just slightly above 29 million, and again on track to pace out as we expect through the year. There's the over-under again. March was over by 203,753 for a year-to-date total of a negative 105,777 change. And again, if you look at the patterns for January to February and February to March, those are pretty much on track with what we expected. Higher above what we anticipated because we started higher above what we anticipated in budget. The main differences here being in December going down more because we didn't get our federal grants collection, and in January going up more because we did, and we had some community partners pitch in January, which we greatly appreciate. Before I go on, are there any questions about that? It's pretty procedural at this point and tracking as we expected. So, okay. We are currently wrapping up our audit with the State Auditor's Office. So to back up a little bit about the audit for the benefit of the board and the public, every year the district is audited and has a full financial audit by the State Auditor's Office. There's also every year a single audit where they choose one item and take a deep dive into it. And then every other year we have what is called the accountability audit, where they look broadly at anything that they choose, anything they want, anything that we flag for them. That's where they look at our Open Public Meetings Act and whether they're properly recorded. They look at our policies. They look at our inventory, anything that they choose to focus on. Last year was an accountability audit. This year is a single audit of our financial statements and our procurement in child nutrition. So Lynn Tipping has done a lot of work to get the auditors everything they need. Our prior director in food service had everything in line, so Lynn was able to get them everything. As we come to nearing the completion of this audit so far, they haven't found anything that's of significant concern. At some point during the audit, we received updated information from the risk pool, which goes into the notes that go to the auditor. So that's something that will have to be updated, and that's probably the most significant thing. And the auditors understood that that was just the timing of that. And we were fully compliant in our procedures for child nutrition procurement. So that's a credit to both Paula, the former director, and Lynn, who has kept those procedures up and really knows our systems and knows the systems and requirements for child nutrition well. So kudos to both of them. 2 items to note. In our previous accountability audit, the SAO did flag our use of local levy funds and issue a management letter. A management letter requires no response or action, but if left unresolved, could elevate to what's called a finding. We did not have any findings in the prior audit, but there was a management letter that flagged 2 things, and one was the use of local levy funds. At the time, we let the auditors know, and by we, I mean Mr. Sullivan and Dr. Irish, let the auditors know that we believed we were in compliance, and their recommendation was that we ensure we are in compliance. I have continued that conversation with the auditors and supplied them with extra documentation and information, and they indicated verbally early on that, yes, okay, they think we are actually using those levy funds properly. Recently, I asked them for a written statement, which is unusual and kind of an extraordinary ask of the state auditor's office, but they have been good partners in a lot of ways, and they agreed to put in writing some of our conversation that we had. I will read you part of the email that they sent to me on April 21st at 3:49. From time to time, entities send us information either during audits or off cycle, and we give our observations if it makes sense. Since this is an accountability audit matter, we don't plan to complete the full work of review and documentation until the next audit we perform in 2027. With that said, we can't give a complete formal status update until that audit. However, upon our viewing of the information you provided with the contracted bargains agreement, new attestation, and the levy resolution, it appears to meet our expectations for documentation that technology levy funds will be used for allowable purposes. So the matter is not closed. It won't be closed until they have their full time and effort dedicated to the accountability audit, but they have indicated in writing that they now agree with us that that is a proper and correct use of our levy funding. The other thing to note, just to put on the radar of the board, there was also a management letter about our financial condition. The recommendation in that case is that we have more cash. We don't disagree with that recommendation and have been endeavoring to do so. But the auditor's office did give us a heads up that they're looking statewide at what it means to have a management letter reissued and whether or not that needs to become a finding level issue. So despite the fact that our financial condition is improving, they will record either a management letter that says they believe we should have more cash, or it may go to the level of being a finding, which has other consequences. I'm hopeful that they won't go that way, because part of the consequence of a finding is that everybody that receives a finding becomes a high-risk auditee, and that creates a lot of extra work for the auditor's office. And the number of findings they would be issuing to districts around the state would create a pretty significant change in the workload for the state auditor's office. So for that reason alone, I'm hopeful that they will keep it at the level of a management letter, but it's worth the board having awareness that that's under consideration for the state auditor's office. Our financial condition has and is improving, but they recommend that we have more than we maybe ever will. 60 days cash on hand is a 16% fund balance, and that's what they hope we would have. So I will open that up to questions and discussion as well.
Appreciate you during the period of time that we are in current audit, bringing these to management letters up because we know that we won't see any resolution on them until 2027 when we get another another accountability audit. So thank you for the update, and thank you for following up with the auditor. And we appreciate their partnership as well. I've met with them at least at every opening and closing of every audit for the past, for however long I've been the president of the board, and always find them to be collaborative and with us, and just really open and honest and transparent. And just want to also name, Brian, that for anyone that's interested, we always put on the board agenda the audit findings after we receive them at when the audits are concluded, so anybody can go on past board agendas and see the audits and the findings. Just also want to say that it feels very unlikely that we would ever be able to get to a 16% fund balance. 4% is what we're aiming for, and that's our board goal. And we're moving slowly, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to move in that direction in the next few years. So appreciate that, and agree with you that if that's the level of threshold that they put a finding out, nearly every district in the state would probably eventually have a finding around that. So any questions or other comments from board members?
I would just like to publicly acknowledge the state audits department for working with you on getting that written information. I know that this likely has impacted a number of districts, and we're not alone in that, and it's really nice to know that they're willing to help us and help us navigate this situation. So I appreciate their efforts.
Yes, they have been good and collaborative partners.
All right, and also collaborative, and also doing their jobs of making sure that we're doing the right thing, and you know, in all transparency, we're being good stewards and legal stewards of the funds our community entrusts us with. So thank you. All right, thank you, Brian. All right, we are going to move into, if I can find it, the committee updates. So I actually am going to, on behalf of Jack, give a WIA update. He emailed the board earlier this week, but the WIA update, there were WIA board recently had their I don't even know what it's called, rep assembly, where they looked at new resolutions for WIA. They had 35 amendments up that were proposed, and 22 of them were approved. And they will go into effect August 1st of 2026. And for the most part, most of them will have moderate impacts on Anacortes, just some like rule changes for sports and things like that, pretty minor things. But just want to note that they did, one of the resolutions that did pass was a fee increase. And so that's a 10% free fee increase for their annual membership to WIAA, which will impact a little bit of our budget. And then there was a second amendment that added a mechanism for automatic 5% increases in future years if they run back-to-back deficits, creating ongoing budget uncertainty for WIA. So as with school districts and most other public entities in the state that are struggling with keeping up with rising costs with running their operation, WIA is in a similar state. And so that impact on them will be passed on to school districts. And if folks are interested in looking at all of the other resolutions that passed and didn't pass, that is available on their website. So with that, I will ask if Meredith has a legislative update.
No report.
Okay, thank you. All right, so next is going to be policy governance. And so we have the stewardship evaluation that we talked about last month. I don't know if there's anything to say about that.
I move that we approve the stewardship evaluation.
Thank you, Meredith. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Heather. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. And then Dr. Bruner is going to present the social emotional pillar report, which we all had a chance to look at during our study session.
Yes, good evening again. We did talk at some length about the social emotional learning progress that we've made in the district this school year. And at this point, I am going to be joined by Dr. Mitchell Muma and Kristen Kohler. Thank you. So this will not go into all the detail that we shared during our study session. This is intended to be a summary of what we discussed. And it will be in the same two parts, though, the first being a report on movement that we've made relative to my targeted goal, and the second part being related to our efforts to create a multi-tiered system of supports. My 5-year key performance outcome, which is related to your 5-year goal 3.1, has to do with staff collaboration and engagement in continuous improvement of student social emotional learning. The action items that I had listed included measurable school improvement, or rather social emotional learning goals continuing to be integrated in school improvement plans. Secondly, we had talked about and had hoped to investigate a cost-free social emotional learning screener to measure student self-regulation as a supplement to Panorama. And then thirdly, we plan to implement PD for staff focused on enhancing belonging and also self-regulation strategies. The left column is a list of those things that we have done in the areas of maintaining continuity and establishing momentum. So indeed, all of our school improvement plans included a social emotional learning goal. Beyond that, Panorama survey scores increased from spring of 2025 to fall of 2025, 15 points in grades 3 through 5, and 20 points in grades 6 to 12. Now, we had a different measure that we reviewed, a different time measurement in the study session, and that was fall of 2024 to fall of 2025. This looks at spring to fall. We also looked at exclusionary disciplinary incidents since March of 2025 compared year over year. They, as you learned earlier this evening, increased in grades K-5 and decreased in grades 6 through 12. We had our K-8 schools engaged with consultants specializing in Tier 1 and Tier 2 preventative behavior supports during their professional learning days. Thanks to Ms. Kohler, we also were able to access grant-supported behavioral therapist specialist support to provide job-embedded professional development for schools. And again, that's something you learned more about earlier. We also have provided ongoing mental health and social work supports, supported in large degree by our many community partners. We still have a lot of work to do, and so our opportunities are listed in the right-hand column. We have, as Ms. Kohler described earlier this evening, a lot of pieces of supports for students at all grade levels in tiers 1, tier 2, and 3. And yet they are not consistent across schools, and they are not necessarily well aligned, nor are they necessarily always implemented with the same level of fidelity. And that's the brass ring that we're reaching for, and that's the goal that we're aiming for next year, is and years beyond, because this is an effort that takes a long time, but we're looking for a well-aligned system at all tiers across the district. We also need to continue to provide ongoing professional learning support to implement all of those MTSS pieces with fidelity. And with fidelity is the key there. We have a plan to employ a behavior prevention specialist, or at least to increase behavior prevention specialist time to provide more job-embedded PD for all schools who are working with students who have very low incidence but high intensity behaviors. We talked earlier this evening about how discipline data was not always easy to compare across grade bands and across schools because of differences in the way that data is inputted into our student information system, Skyward. And that's not unusual across districts, but it is something that requires attention to, and that is a recommended area of focus for next year. And lastly, we hope to pilot the cost-free SEL screener that Ms. Kohler referenced in work study, which measures self-regulation, which is a very, very important part of taking a look at social emotional learning. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Kohler.
Thank you, Dr. Bruner. Good evening. So we had been, over the last couple of years, focused on three kind of major areas. One is really at the classroom level. How are we addressing social emotional learning and response to behaviors at the classroom level? So we've done a lot of training. As Dr. Bruner referenced, we have a variety of training at most every building. And really that focused, three areas of focus there is developing relationships with students and making sure that students feel included and belong in the classroom. And how do we do that? We do that through a variety of ways, including an instructional fit. So we've been talking a lot about what's the function of behavior, which would be the second area. If a student is struggling with behavior or self-regulation, what are those root causes? Is it that the instructional fit isn't there? Is it there's a sense of belonging? There's self-regulation challenges. So really looking functionally at behavior to try to determine how to help the student overcome those challenges. We've also had the opportunity to partner with the Family Center to provide training in trauma-informed practices. So that's been really well received by staff, so that at the classroom level, there's this greater understanding about what positive behavioral supports looks like in the classroom, the components of functional, looking at behavior functionally, and looking at what trauma looks like and how to best respond, so that we can be supportive and help students who have experienced trauma grow and thrive in the classroom. So we've done a lot of work, and principals have been amazing. They've invited our PBIS roadshow into most every building, and they also have been incredible about maintaining that professional learning throughout the year, embedded in their professional development days. So for our developing relationships exercise, we had staff develop action plans about specifically what moves that they will make with specific kids to deepen relationships and increase the sense of belonging for specific students. And principals have pulled those out time and time again throughout the year, just revisiting what those action plans look like. So that's been really impactful and well received. Another area that we've been working on is, as Dr. Bruner alluded to, really creating that coherence around this social emotional support programming, so that it really mirrors similar to what we just saw with the Island View team, how they had data that they were using to disaggregate the needs of specific students and address those in very specific ways, and then monitoring that progress. So that's what we're working toward. As part of that, we need to know where we are and where we need to go. So every building has had some degree of PBIS, or positive behavior interventions and supports, training and program development. But over time, things shift, leaders change, staff changes. So we're really kind of coming back to that PBIS fidelity rubric, really understanding and having students have leadership teams understand the components of that, of PBIS, and understanding where they need to go next. So informing the SIP plans moving forward. So that's happening actively at Fidalgo. Actually, the first session happened today. And then last school year, we had grant-funded leadership to lead Island View through that process. So we're going to just continue to build on that. This year we've had Dr. Mitchell Muma and I have been working closely with the MTSS coordinators in the elementary, and we really have kind of an exciting synergy going where we're looking at all of the growth and systems that have been put in place in terms of academic intervention, and now we're looking to layer that behavioral component on as well, and kind of helping people see the connection between teaching academic skills and teaching social emotional skills, and how we can do that in a very systemic way to help support students. So I'm excited about the work that we've been doing, and I'm excited about what's to come, but I'll let Dr. Mitchell Muma speak to that.
Kristen. So I'll talk a little bit about the opportunities, and some of these have already been touched on, but Dr. Bruner mentioned the Universal Behavior Screener, and we know, as with our presentation from Island View, that it's not enough to have a screener or a tool for measuring student progress. We also need to know how to utilize that, and teachers need to know how to utilize that and be able to practice it. And that comes with training and professional development and time for teachers to get together to discuss. So that will be something, when we think about opportunities, we'll be looking at for this upcoming year. Planning for behavioral specialist position. We have had, through grants, many really amazing professionals, experts in the field of behavior come and support staff through professional development, and also brainstorm with us when we're
needing critical support. We know that when you have specialists within the system that know the students and know the buildings and know the teachers, that job embedded professional development, like we talked about at the work session, is the most effective way to go about that. So just thinking about kind of visioning and planning for a position in the future that would help support us really throughout our system in that way, in a really more sustainable and regular way. And then inventory and calibration of Tier 1 curriculum and instruction, as we've talked about with academic curriculum, that core instruction that happens in the classroom, not just in academics, but also with social, emotional, and behavioral learning, is critical to success, right? All kids receive this instruction, and so every student knows what the expectations are and learns skills for behavior and social, emotional regulation. And next year we'll be looking at that in terms of how to just some calibration and collaboration across the district around that Tier 1 curriculum. And then just continuing the professional development to build the skills through the system, like we talked about during the work session. We can go one more slide. Oh, I have the power, okay. And just a reminder of our, during the work session, we spent some time thinking about a multi-tiered system of support and what that looks like. And this is ours in progress, under construction. We also looked at other systems throughout the U.S. and how they model that. And our hope is that we continue to build a comprehensive and well-developed multi-tiered system of support for behavior that teachers and transportation department and administrators, that we all understand those supports, so that every adult and every student feels supported and knows what our system looks like. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation, and I think the board can make some quick comments, but just appreciate the whole team and everything that has been done with social and emotional learning this year. I think that one thing I want to elevate and highlight is when districts are facing budget challenges, oftentimes something that one of the first things that we have not been able to provide in certain areas is professional learning. And that you all, I think mostly you, Kristen, have gone out and got grants and funding. I just think it's like incredible that teachers have been able to experience professional learning this year in this area. And we heard even at the study session about some of the incredible impacts that's had on how teachers feel equipped to increase their skills and support students in their classrooms. So just really appreciate the work that has gone into providing that support for teachers. And also just want to name as services and things are cut, as we're losing funding for specific positions around, not positions necessarily, but just support for social and emotional learning and student mental health, just that you all have been able to think about what does it mean to build that capacity within our district and within teachers and within leaders. I just think it's like super important. So really appreciate that. And we saw some of the evidence of the payoff of that in the data that was presented during the study session. So I don't know if other people have comments or.
I just have a brief one. I wanted to thank you for the more we bring it up about how you tie in the social emotional learning aspect into the ability of kids to learn. It helps reinforce to people who aren't familiar with it or haven't really bought into the fact that kids need to be socially, emotionally learning to learn, right? So I really appreciate, the more we talk about it, the more common it becomes, the more accepted it becomes. And so thank you guys for continuing with this.
I want to really applaud your whole team, Dr. Bruner, and the two of you and everyone else at the district office for finding really creative approaches to solutions. So listening and learning early on and not taking a whole calendar year before you started making motion with zero budget and really a district that needs aligned from kindergarten through 12th grade in this subject. And what you've been able to do in that short amount of time with only a couple of you having been here more than a few months, it's been creative and professional. And I'm really excited about the way the teachers and the staff and the building leaders feel heard by all of you and engaged and ready to jump in the work, because you didn't come tell them what to do. You've worked collaboratively with them to find these solutions, and it's really exciting. And also you've put yourself in a hole, because what all of the great work is, there are also opportunities for the next year. You're just creating a longer list of the bright things that we can see in the future. So this is really exciting, and this is a great pillar report. So thank you, all of you.
Yep, and looking forward to continuing to, I know that like continuing to address this through the MTSS structure is like an ongoing goal. You know, we've started with the academic components and moved into the social and emotional and behavioral components. So looking forward to the continuation of that. And really MTSS is so well established at the elementary level, but thinking about like how this looks K-12 is exciting, that we'll be continuing to talk about that and hear about it. And bringing more coherence across the system. Like even you said, Dr. Bruner, thinking about how are we recording discipline, like making it consistent so that we can really get a good view at a board level of across the district what's happening. So appreciate your work and the continued work that will happen in the future in the social and emotional bucket. So appreciate that. All right, well, let's, I will take a motion then to approve the social and emotional pillar report.
So moved.
Thank you, Meredith. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Diana. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right, we will move into new business. We have quite a few policy updates. Most of them are first reads. We have a couple of votes on policy and then removals. But Nikki is going to lead us through the policy updates. And just a reminder, most of the first reads will show up in consent agenda next month, and the procedures are there as FYIs only. The board only votes on policy, not procedure.
Good evening, board. My name is Nicole Tesh, and I am here tonight to present you with the policy updates for the April 23rd meeting. I'm going to try something a little bit different tonight. The purpose is listed on all of them, but we have over 20 policies to go over tonight, because I'm happy to announce tonight that after tonight, we have completed the 6,000 series. Also, by the time of our auditors being here. So that's really, really exciting. So that's just an extra plus for us. So these are the policies we're going to review tonight. So we'll go through them one by one. Friendly reminder to the board and to the public, WASDA has classified our policies in different ways to make it a little bit easier to understand. Critical is formally essential, important is formally encouraged, and discretionary is unchanged. I kind of liked it the old way better, but we'll go with it. All right, the first policy up is policy 2108, Learning Assistance Program. It's a first read for tonight, and this policy is deemed critical. And I'm excited to say that I'm going through policies now and removing pandemic-related language. So that's all we did in this one. So we get to officially do that, 5 years after? So this one will move to the next meeting if I get a head nod. Great.
Yes, and also it's amazing to me that we had pandemic language in our policies. We took time to do that. So.
There was quite a few of them that we actually had to update because of the pandemic. Next policy is policy 2140, Comprehensive School Counseling Program. It's a first read for tonight, and this policy has been deemed as important. The revisions include that non-discriminatory language that we have just gone through all of those other policies, especially in that first 1000 series. So we're going to be cleaning that up. You'll just see that kind of sprinkled throughout all of the policies, but that's pretty much the only change in this one. So this one will move forward to the consent agenda next month. Next up is policy 5401 and its corresponding procedure 5401P. In regards to sick leave, this is a vote for tonight. And the reason why it's a vote for tonight is because you guys just reviewed this a few months ago and the law made a few more changes. So as you can see, there's been quite a few changes to the RCW as well as the WAC. And so going through the entire policy, we just made sure that those were consistent with state law.
Just a question, the law changes just came out of the session that just happened, is that?
As far as I understand, yes.
Okay, great.
Because we just updated it in January.
Yeah, okay. Any questions on this one? Okay, then I will take a motion to approve policy 5401.
I move we approve policy 5401.
Thank you, Diana. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Heather. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next policy up is policy 6570, its corresponding procedure and its corresponding form for data and records management. And tonight is the first read, and this policy is deemed as important. Well, the first thing that I wanted to do was remove the procedure and form. The procedure is no longer relevant, and the form also does not make any sense. So most of those things have been automated through other processes. We don't need additional forms just to have people fill out forms. So we're simplifying. It also removes quite a bit of outdated language in regards to fixed asset thresholds and theft sensitive language. It is identified in other policies where it's more descriptive. It just doesn't really belong in this policy. It also simplifies and consolidates property and inventory requirements, which will make James's life a lot easier. And it updates the WASPIC authority and annual review of data systems to make that records process a little bit easier. This will move forward to the consent agenda next month. Do you have any objection to removing the procedure and the form? Okay, great. Next policy is policy 6600 and its corresponding procedure. This one is in regards to transportation. Tonight is a first read, and this policy is deemed as important. The major revisions for this one kind of talk a little bit about walkability and the safety in regards to that. And then it streamlines some routing and eligibility language for transportation services to make sure it's consistent with our practice. And it also clarifies parent responsibility and logistics within the policy and procedure. And it modernizes emergency routing procedures, which are extremely important so that they're consistent throughout all of the transportation policies within our policy book. You'll also see these changes kind of sprinkled throughout the student section as well. All right, policy 6620, special transportation. This is a first read for tonight, and this policy has been deemed as important. The revisions for this one include adding authority for administrators working with transportation to deny services for rule violations. So if you guys remember in another policy that we had worked on, we were working with that WAC information that kind of talks about the ability to be able to deny services. And so this is just kind of making sure that policy is consistent throughout. And clarified and reinforced provisions related to leasing district buses, which wasn't in a policy. All right, policy 6640, school and vehicles. This is a first read for tonight, and this policy is deemed discretionary. This one was pretty straightforward. It just adds compliance information in regards to state and federal laws, including the use of a walkie-talkie, which you think would be kind of standard operation, but this policy was quite old, and so I guess we didn't have walkie-talkies at the time, so I wanted to make sure that that was put in there properly. It also removes superintendent reporting and procedure directives regarding 24-hour vehicle assignments. That's crazy. So we went ahead and took that out because Carl and James would be doing nothing else. And we have people in the department and computer programs that do all of those things automated for us. All right, next one up is policy 6690, contracting for transportation services. This is a first read, and this policy is deemed discretionary. Pretty straightforward. This is just making sure that we're in compliance with the RCW for reporting, and anytime we use private transportation providers. So like this would be if we had a charter bus, for instance, for an event. If we were to use it, this is just the language that just makes us comply with the law. And it adds in clarification for contract term limits to apply unless otherwise allowed by law. It's just adding in that additional language. All right, this is policy 6700 and its corresponding procedure in regards to nutrition. This is a first read for tonight, and this policy is deemed critical. So if you remember, this policy used to be called Nutrition, Health, and Physical Education. Well, that does not need one policy, that needs three policy because they are three very different things. So they went ahead and separated it. So you'll see that throughout this policy, most of the changes in it are removing the health and physical education language so that they could move it over to its own policy. So you guys will see two new policies that pop up that have these elements that are in it. Those will be presented to you next month so that the flow comes at the exact same time. Then it also added in federal programs section referencing USDA nutrition programs as well as our wellness policy. And it separates, I guess I put that one twice, separate it twice. All right, policy 6800 and its corresponding procedure. Operations and maintenance of school property. It's a first read for tonight, and this policy is deemed as discretionary. This policy was pretty much a rewrite. It had quite a few things in it that needed to be added, including infrastructure management, APP requirements, and OSPI reporting. Those things are just, again, these are things that we've been practicing, but it wasn't reflected in the policy. It adds in playground equipment safety and specification standards. Again, we have an entire system for these things. It's just making sure the policy lines up with the practice. Added chemical and laboratory safety requirements and procedures, destruction of school property procedures, and removes duplicate discipline and restitution language from facilities maintenance. Next up is policy 6810, energy management, education, and conservation. The state, this is a first read for tonight, and this policy is deemed as important. The state has been creating a focused energy towards conservation language, and you'll see that kind of, again, sprinkled throughout the WASDA policy book. So this one adds in the conservation to the policy title, and a little bit of language in the policy as to what that means for energy management and renewable energy systems and facilities if you're building new things. It also adds in the life cycle cost analysis requirements for construction projects. Again, simple language that is also in the construction policy that you had approved either last month or the month before. So it's just kind of bringing that down and making it consistent in this policy as well. Policy 6882, sale of real property. This is a first read, and this policy is deemed as important. The changes to this policy were pretty simple. It just adds in clarification that sale proceeds may reimburse district funds for costs related to the sale. Again, this is a little bit of a duh, but it just kind of spells it out. And there's also some added language for the allowance of reimbursements to be returned to the original fund where the sale-related expenses were incurred. So you write it in the checkbook, and then you make sure it goes back into the same account. Next policy is Policy 6890, State Environmental Policy Act Compliance. This is a first read, and this policy is deemed as critical. This one just clarifies and streamlines SEPA procedures, notices and responsibility. We haven't done any of these in a really, really long time. Probably the construction of this school, if I'm thinking about it. But again, just making sure that we're current with state law on that one. We added an effective date, severability, and updated policy adoption information so that it cues us to do this again when the SEPA guidelines get updated. A process. Policy 6900, facilities planning. This is the first read, and this policy is deemed as discretionary. It removes state cost stabilization program reference. They don't really do that anymore, and so they have a different program that they reference throughout, so you'll see that kind of change throughout the policy. And it streamlines and clarifies the facility master plan and enrollment projection language so that it's consistent with what Brian tells you. Policy 6905, site acquisition. The revisions for this policy were pretty small. It replaces language in there that talks about site acquisition, and then removes master planning and enrollment projection sections, kind of like the last policy. And there's a shifted emphasis to land acquisition procedures and requirements so that we're compliant with state law. Policy 6910, construction financing. This is a first read, and this policy is deemed as important. The revisions of this policy detail the process for contracting non-voted bonds over $250,000. And if a bond measure specific expenditures must be altered, the board may hold a public hearing for input and adopt a new resolution after consideration. This is our practice, just making sure it's consistent within policy. Next policy is, my recommendation is to remove policy 6911, post-issuance compliance. The whole purpose of this policy was to set requirements for post-issuance compliance of district bonds and tax compliance. I recommend that we remove this policy because it's redundant with federal and state bond compliance law. It is not a WASDA model policy language. This was specific to the high school bond and isn't relevant to current state law anymore. And it we moved compliance details to administrative procedures and bond counsel oversight. So this one will be a vote for tonight.
Thank you. Any questions before we vote on this one? All right, I will take a motion to approve the removal of policy 6911.
I make a motion that we remove policy 6911.
Thank you, Heather. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Meredith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, policy 6920 and its corresponding procedure for construction design. This is a first read, and this policy is deemed as important. Basically, the only revision in this one, it wasn't enough to be an administrative change. It's just saying that a designee is now permitted to oversee the facilities and adhere to accessibility requirements, again, aligning with state law. I wish there was some exciting things in these policies.
Important, though. They're all
important, but not a lot of exciting changes for a board meeting at 8 o'clock at night. Next up is policy 6950, contractor assurances, I cannot say that. Surety bonds. I didn't say it right, did I? Insurance and change orders. It's a first read, and this policy is deemed as important. The revisions of this policy include contractor compliance, language in regards to bonding, insurance, and change order provisions. This is normal practice. But the language wasn't identified in the policy, so we went ahead and added that in. And we removed architectural and engineering selection and procurement process language because there's a whole other process for that. Policy 6955, maintenance of facility records.
This is a first read, and this policy is deemed as important. The revisions of this policy are saying a person will keep the documents related to existing or proposed project, such as plans, specs, estimates, as-built documents, maintenance manuals, resolutions, and change orders. So the important thing to note about this one, you'll see throughout a lot of the policies that the word shall and will have been removed throughout it. So we have to be really careful with the word shall or will, because sometimes WASDA gets a little bit excited on that language and mandates something and creates further restrictions on school districts than they really need to. The state law doesn't require us to do it, so we don't want to kind of tie up our policy. So you'll see some of that language in this one. We're compliant with state law, but we're not going to make it so hard for us to do. Next policy is policy 6959, acceptance of completed project. This is the first read. The revisions of this policy add in language against lien and retainage compliance, required closeout documents, board acceptance requirement, 60-day wait for final payment, and making sure that it's OSPI compliant. So these are just a few things that were changed since you guys did the high school project. It also removes tax clearance steps and detailed retainage bonding and provisions. You guys, we did it. Woo!
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
And while nothing exciting or controversial or challenging, it's super important that we are in compliance with state law and up to date on our policies. So appreciate you spearheading this. And I think next month we can celebrate they're kind of done, but we'll vote on them next month. So thank you, the 6,000 series. All right, we have 2 resolutions this evening on the agenda, starting with the resolution 1021, reduction in education programs certificated, and Connie's going to speak probably to both of them, but we'll vote one at a time.
I will speak to both, but you can vote separately, of course. Why this is so important is one of them that it's standard by state law. So I know it causes anxiety for folks when they see this resolution every year come up to vote. However, I have to do it for my due diligence for our certificated timeline, which is May 15th. So if we need any adjustments made, we need to make sure that we know and let staff know, along with our union representatives. So that's why you have the first read resolution 1021 is certificated.
Thank you, Connie, and just want to acknowledge that as our enrollment declines in a little small way every year, we are making sure that our staffing is appropriate to the number of students that we're serving every year. And so also, don't necessarily anticipate needing to eliminate up to 5 full-time certificated positions, but want to be able to do that if we need to based on enrollment. Once we know, we get a full picture of what's happening with enrollment and with staffing, and lots of things in play with folks potentially retiring or leaving the district, and all the things that can happen leading up to the end of a school year. But we want to be in a position where we are able to staff at an appropriate rate based on our enrollment for next year. So any other comments or questions about this before we take a vote? All right, so I will take a motion to approve resolution 1021, reduction in education programs certificated.
I move that we approve resolution 1021,
Thank
reduction
you.
in educated program certificated.
Thank you, Diana. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Meredith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then do you want to say anything about the next one?
Classified, we don't routinely have a WAC that we follow the May 15th. We do have some CBA language around that, but we put both forward for you for that partnership, just so that we're transparent with the community and our unions. Again, same thing, looking at student enrollment levels to inform us when we're making student decisions based on this allocation.
Thank you. Again, making staffing decisions based on enrollment and lots of things go into the mix till we get to a final position of staffing for next school year, but want to be transparent about all of the different options and things that might have to come into play if we get to that point of needing to do that. So thank you. I will take a motion to approve Resolution 1022, reduction in education programs classified.
So moved.
Thank you, Meredith. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Diana. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Connie. Thank you. We have a consent agenda this evening to vote on. I just want to point out that there are, is it 5 or 4? 4 generous donations that are, plus the Foundry one. So kind of 5. One's a award that we were able to get, but want to just call out community members, the Rotary Club, the Webb Family and Skagit Community Foundation, Anacortes Public Library Partnership, and then the Anacortes Alumni Booster Club that all are lots of folks continuing to step up when we have budget challenges to be able to support extra things for our kids and our programs so that we are able to provide things for our kids and our students that we wouldn't otherwise be able to provide without community partnerships and donations. And then the Foundry partnership that the Foundry is a nonprofit that awards funding to schools to provide funding for things that we couldn't otherwise afford, and so appreciate them supporting our district as well. So just want to name that those are all on the consent agenda this evening. And then all the policies that we looked at last month. So any other questions, or I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda, items A through P.
Thank you, Diana. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Heather. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. And our board calendar, like I mentioned earlier, our next site visit in May is to the Northwest Career and Technical Academy. Not sure yet if we're going to the Mount Vernon campus or the Anacortes campus, but we'll be in touch about that. And then we have our May study session and evening business meeting on the 21st, and then Anacortes, thank you, the Anacortes location. And then on June 4th, we have an early June study session and business meeting. Everybody appreciates not having that the week of graduation, as in past years. Right after graduation. So that'll be on June 4th. So with that, we are going to take a brief break. We will reconvene. Are you all okay reconvening at 8:10? It's only 4 minutes. Okay. We're going to reconvene at 8:10 in the conference room for an executive session per RCW 4231-1109G, review the performance of a public employee, and we will be looking at the social emotional pillar report and the evaluation of that. And so we will reconvene at 8:10. Is it too hopeful to say we'll be done at 8:30? Okay. We will adjourn at 8:30. Okay. Okay, so we're going to adjourn now. We're adjourned.